जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा.
Everyone, welcome back to my channel Great Asia. First of all, I give you a motivational code. I hope you guys like this code. Freedom is not a given, it is taken. Fight for your rights. Lala Rajput Rai. Now we are celebrating the 78th Independence Day. Yeah, happy Independence Day to all the Indians who love India and who respect the India. We gained our independence for 78 years ago and we are happy and enjoy our freedom, right? But how did the British take away our freedoms? Ever you wonder, India is a subcontinent. How did the British capture us? And even more, we are not captured by Britain government. We are captured by East India Company. How is possible? India is about 30 times bigger than United Kingdom. United Kingdom is approximately 243,610 square kilometer, while India is approximately 3,287,263 square kilometer, making India 1,249% larger than United Kingdom. A small island in some other part of the world countries. How did they do? India is a subcontinent with higher in population, also so many kingdoms with so many soldiers. How did they easily capture our subcontinent? Before we enter to our time travel to the August 24, 1608 on Surat in India. If you don't subscribe to my channel, just subscribe. Let us enter to the time portal, then watch the past. Here we are providing an interesting brief look into when and why the British first landed on the Indian territory. Also how simple trading company British East India Company became one of the biggest challenge to ever dealt with. And the interesting question is, how was the British East India Company formed? We need to go back to New Year Eve on 1600. Queen Elizabeth I, it was a signature on a royal charter granted to a group, the British Joint Stock Company, as it was known earlier, was founded by John Watts and George White for trade with who wanted to trade in Asia to get spices, cotton and indigo dye and then sell them in England for profit. Later is known as East India Company that would change the destinies of two nations forever. However, at first, in fact, the sailors did not have an idea to come India. At first, there are not no the sea route until then in 1498 when Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama who found the Europe to India sea route. Also, this was made India's center of attraction of Europe's trade to circuit and European power rushed to Asia to get their own trading post. But come to find the sailors' choice to East India, what is now modern day Indonesia, Malaysia and the Philippines, and they tried to competing with the Dutch, French and Portuguese merchants in the East Indies. But over the time, the East India Company, after being driven out of the East Indies, shifted its focus onto the Indian subcontinent. In August 24, 1608, British landed on the Surat port in India. Also, one more thing I bet you never know about before. In 1640, a company representative succeeded in securing a grant of land in southern India, a crucial moment as it marks the first time that Indian land was owned directly by British. It was on this land that they constructed St. George Fort, the settlement that grew around this region became the thriving city of Madras, now known as Chennai, and home to over 12 million people. After British landed on India, they wanted to see Jahangir, the Empire of Mughal Kingdom, and then asked for permission to open a trading company. Mughal Empire Jahangir granted a formula to Captain William Hawkins, permitting the British to operate a factory at Surat. In 1630, in 1650, Thomas wrote the ambassador to James, I got a royal formula from Jahangir to trade and establish factories all across the Mughal Empire. Soon the Vijayanagara Empire also gave the company permission to open a factory in Madras, and then British companies started to blocking out the other European trading companies in their rising power. Mughal Empire, which once ruled over not just the majority of India but also parts of modern-day Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, was on the decline in the wake of very costly wars of conquest. The Mughals suffered from repeated invasions by Persians, Afghans and other Indians. In 1739, the Mughal capital Delhi was kicked by the Persian ruler Nader Shah following the decisive Battle of Kurnool, and in 1748 Nader Shah pupil the Afghan Ahmad Shah Durrani also led his armies into Mughal territory, beginning his own invasion due to these victories. By the middle of the 18th century, the Mughal Empire took the role of a figurehead to many new empowered local rulers. However, as the Mughals weakened, the Maratha kingdom in the centre-west of India was carving out an empire of its own despite never blocking out the Mughal Empire at the its height of the Maratha Empire remained as a dominating power in India. For another 18 years or so, as all this was happening, the East India Company began to overshadow its European competitors, devoting valuable profit to raising a private army in the effort to contend with the Maratha Empire and Bengal. By now, the East India Company benefited grandly from the country imposing navy, which enabled it to ferry more and more men to India, that is, European competitors, as much as the company's military. Help its growth, it was the laissez-faire policy that won over many local rulers to their side, many of whom benefited financially from the dealing with the company and did not perceive their influence to be at risk of all the Europeans who have established themselves in India. The British and French based in the south were now leading, but under the brave Robert Clive, the British East India Company's army was able to defend Bengal and their French alliance. At the Battle of Plassey during the 7 Years' War, which by the 1716s allowed them to declare control over much of the Indian subcontinent unchecked, though direct territorial ownership or indirect tributary arrangement, in leaving behind them the foundation of an empire greater ever that of Akbar himself. As the middle of the 19th century drew closer and Indian nation awareness began to take form as a company rule resulted in a wider array of social and economic reforms being demanded from increasingly altered local rulers. These sentiments come to an end in the Indian Rebellion of 1857, also known as the Sepoys, which were brutally suppressed and concluded with the formal dissolution of the Mughal Empire and the transfer of power from the British East India Company to Britain itself. Power now rested in the hands of the British Crown directly, and as the 19th century continued, India's resources and the livelihoods of its people were exploited to fuel the industrial solution in Britain, leading to a series of food shortage which shook the Indian economy to the core and left millions of Indians dead. One thing was beyond question: the British Empire now had millions of new subjects under its rule in India. A royal expansion would not stop that to conclude the political vacuum left by the Mughal Empire. In the wake of repeated invasions, the failure of the Indian states, particularly the Maratha Empire, to fill the vacuum and unify India, the failure of other European powers to stop the British Britain military and industrial leadership, and the governing policy of the East India Company allowed Britain to take over the Indian subcontinent. If you like this video, just subscribe, like, share. Bye everyone.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंह